He was the only other guy I ever met, at the time, and maybe to this day, who felt that the same way as I did about rock and roll, that rock and roll was everything. It wasn't just a hobby. It wasn't just something you did on the weekend or something like that just for fun. It was everything. It became my religion, and it was something very special.
Welcome to On Brand with Donny Deutsch. I am Donny Deutsch, and this is the show that is dedicated to the simple premise that everybody and everything and every product and every company and every celebrity and athlete and politician is a brand. Everything today is a brand. And what we do on the show is two things. First, we interview a big individual brand about their personal brand. Today, we've got Stevie Van Zandt from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, of course, part of Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band. Starred on the Sopranos, huge serious show, and he's just a really fascinating guy. We're going to talk to Stevie Van Zandt in a little bit of his brand, but first let's get to the brands of the week. First up, the Arizona recount. Big brand up for the Arizona recount. Of course, as we know by now, the Republican or Trump or whoever it was hired they were called the cyber ninjas to find in Maricopa County these general election inaccuracies in 2020. And guess what? They found out that actually Biden got more votes than even. So what a big thumbs up. And a particular thumbs brand down for Trump. This is what's amazing. At Trump 1030, news broke of a draft from Cyber Ninjas that actually said that he had done worse. And yet he basically released a statement through Save America PAC, promoted the results and called the auditors highly respected and promoted their examination results. Didn't even know they won or lost. And to make it even worse, he's at a Georgia rally a couple of days later, and he basically says, we won the Arizona forensic audit yesterday at a level you wouldn't believe in Perry, Georgia. It just doesn't stop. And, once again, even after this and after this group looked at it again and they said that he comes out just the same lie. And guys, we're in scary places. I haven't, talked about this on the show. I'm worried that Trump can win again. Biden is looking, it's just not looking strong lately. And the Republicans are teeing up right now. There are 16 state legislatures that they've changed the rules that they can kind of throw the election to. And we're in scary territory here. And the lies just keep happening. Along those lines, brand down for 21 million Americans. 21 million Americans say Biden is illegitimate and Trump should be restored by violence. Okay, so the actual number is that 25% of American adults, 1 in 4, 47 million, agree with the statement that this was stolen from Donald Trump. So it's 1 in 4 in this country. That's not 1 in 4 Republicans, 1 in 4 in this country. But of those, 9%, which account for 21 million, agree that the use of force is justified to restore Trump to the presidency. So that's, what is that, 1 in 12 Americans think that not only Trump lost the election, but we should use violence to get it back. And so this is where we're going. Brand down for Rudy Giuliani. Giuliani has been banned from Fox News. There you go. Rudy is really hurt, Politico quarter source close to Giuliani is saying. Basically, according to the website, the prominent Trump ally learned of his expulsion on the eve of the 20th anniversary of 9/11. He was particularly angry because he said he was a big factor for Rupert Murdoch. He was instrumental in 96 in getting Fox on Time Warner, so it could be watching New York City. But once again, Fox News probably having something to do with the lawsuit from Dominion, the voting machines. They're being a little more careful. They're not putting complete raving lunatics, or at least not all the time, people like Giuliani on, but they still have their share of raving lunatics. Speaking of which, brand down for Kelly McEnany. This is just amazing. She basically blamed Joe Biden for the increasing murder rate in 2020. She basically wrote, there is no precedent for last year's increase in the murder rate. The previous largest one-year increase was 12.7% in 1968. And then realized, oops, that's when Trump was president. So this is just amazing. And of course, she takes it down after that. But there you go for Kelly McEnany, really on top of her game, like so many of the Republicans. A brand up and a brand down for Manny Pacquiao. Brand up because he's running for the president of Philippines, and a very, very smart brand strategy. He's bringing kind of the fighting mentality. He's going to fight. He's telling people he's going to fight for, of course, Manny Pacquiao, the former world champion boxer. But let's give him a huge brand down. Let's remember when he was president, he said in the Senate, he said LGBTQ people are worse than animals. There you go. That's who's running for president of the Philippines. So a brand down. Once again, I don't believe you get to call any group of people animals, particularly worse than animals. LGBTQ people, Manny Pacquiao, that's maybe your future president of the Philippines. Brand up for the New York City Mass Transit Association. Officials on Wednesday announced bus and train riders, after a year of lax enforcement, they're going to cover your face or a $50 fine. I think they've basically given out a total of like 50, 60, 70 fines to date. But now they've only issued 41 summons to date, but now conducting the first 6 months of 2020 found that more than 80% of subway riders wore their masks over both their noses and mouths, but that figure has dipped to 71% in early July, remain below 75% early September. They're going to start finding people. And guys, I said this in so many different ways. The way, at the end of the day, we get people vaccinated is we just kind of keep moving the goalposts in, whether it's that you can't travel here or you need a mask here. And if you don't wear a mask, you get a fine. We got to hit people in the pocketbook. Brand up for David Simon. David Simon is the Wire creator, and he won't film his new HBO show in Texas over abortion law. And that's it. I mean, once again, hit these states where it hurts. Take the commerce away from it. I salute him. Simon wrote on Twitter, if an employer, this is beyond politics. I'm turning to scripts next month on an HBO nonfiction miniseries based on events in Texas, but I can't and won't ask female cast crew to forego civil liberties to film there. So a brand up for David Simon. I think you see more of that. A brand I'm not sure for J-Lo. Now, I guess she gets a brand up because she was Adweek's brand visionary of the year, J-Lo. Actress, singer, and entrepreneur Jennifer Lopez officially became Adweek's brand visionary at the Brand Week Summit. Recognizes her career's worth of branding and marketing achievements. Brand visionary is Adweek's Marquee Award. She's the 10th person to receive it. She's done a lot of work for DSW, Coach, Pepsi. I'm not quite sure why she is the brand visionary of the year. You want to call her an entertainer of the year? I mean, she's done some branding work. I love Adweek. Actually, I'm speaking at one of their big Adweek conferences coming up. Not quite sure why she's the brand visionary, so we'll have to chat about that a little bit. We've got a brand up for Doja Cat. Doja Cat launches the first makeup collab with BH Cosmetics. Chart-topping pop star Doja Cat is aiming to make waves in the beauty world with her first makeup collaboration. She's got a 36-color eyeshadow palette. This is it. This is the way you sell cosmetics today. And this is the way you sell meals at McDonald's. You take a hip-hop artist, you take a very current artist, you take a TikTok artist, and you glom them on top. Never in the history of marketing has there been more saliency with, I don't want to call them celebrity endorsers, celebrity owners of brands. And they encompass the brand. They are the brand. And you're seeing this across the world. So Doja Cat, there you go. I know all my viewers are big Doja Cat fans. Okay, brand well-intentioned for Shaq, and I love Shaq, but I'm going to give him a brand. I don't get this. He said celebrity status is out of their mind. He says, he doesn't want to be called a celebrity anymore. Those celebrities are going freaking crazy, and I don't want to be one. I denounced my celebrity status today. I'm done with it, O'Neill told the Post while discussing his new campaign with Kellogg's. So you're doing a new campaign with Kellogg's. You're obviously monetizing your celebrity status, as well you should, but you're putting down being a celebrity. So I don't get it. He's a good man. He's done a lot of charitable stuff. He's a very smart businessman. They say he's worth somewhere around $500 million, and he's always invested. He says, if a product's going to make my life better, I'll invest in it. And I think that's a very simple, interesting way of looking at investing, but I'm not quite sure what his shunning of celebrity status is. Brand up for William Shatner. And here's why. I love this. He's turning 90, or he is 90. And basically, after decades, he last played the role of Captain Kirk. He's really going to space on Jeff Bezos's rocket ship. That's right. He will be in the space flight in the New Shepard Castle with Blue Origin, of course. We're told Shatner will be on board October for the 15-minute civilian flight, similar to the last launch. How great is that? Captain Kirk really going into space at age 90. Gotta love that. Brand up for American Gladiators. American Gladiators. It was a TV show on ABC in the 90s, or late 80s. It's coming back, and it's being put together by WWE and MGM. I think that's interesting. WWE is part of it. Mark Burnett's part of it. American Gladiators. I think in this, anything fight in this world seems to be doing well, obviously led by MMA and with celebrity boxing with Jake Paul and things like that. So I'm thinking this is going to be a good one. A brand down for Spencer Eldon. He is, he is the baby on the cover of the Nirvana Nevermind album. And obviously, if you know that album, you know Nirvana, it's a baby. You see his little genitalia, and which I think today, interestingly enough, they would not have done that. And he's claiming that he's demanding Universal redact the image of the genitalia from all future album covers. He sued over the image. He says that it was exploitation and violation of his privacy. You know, I kind of get it. I mean, I don't know if I want a little naked picture of me on an album cover and billions of people. I mean, like I said, interesting in today's age. I don't think they would have done that, but I guess we'll give him a brand down, dude. Come on, you got to go with this stuff. Brand up for Daniel Craig. Daniel Craig, of course, is playing in his last James Bond movie. And Heineken, which is in, I think, been 7 or 8 Heineken movies. In the newest ad, he basically just pours the Heineken. I mean, that's how cool Daniel Craig is. And I think that's great advertising. Get out of the way. If I see Daniel Craig drinking a Heineken, I want a Heineken. I don't need any other bullshit in the ad. So I applaud for that. Here's a great idea. Brand up for Turo. All right, that's right. It's Turo. It's basically Airbnb for cars. You can compete with rental car giants. It's basically you rental cars in short supply. Enterprising car owners have amassed their own small fleets of automobiles, renting them out to travelers. If you need a car in Boston for a weekend in October, you can rent a Ford Fiesta hatchback from budget for about $500, or pay the same for a Maserati from Turo.com, a car sharing site. So it's a great idea. People share their cars. You rent them out. You get them for a fraction of what you pay at the big rental car services. So it is basically another example of tremendous disruption. Brand up for Peyton and Eli Manning, the Manning brothers. Really great idea. ESPN, very smart. On their Monday night games, they simulcast on ESPN2. Instead of their regular announcers, who do a good job, they've got the Manning brothers kind of really shooting the crap and being very informal and picking, you hear their kind of really inside football stuff. In the first week, it had 2 million viewers. A big jump from the first to second week, 132% increase. And it's just really smart. It's just smart for ABC and ESPN to just get one more feed. You run the same game but with a little kind of a different spice. And the Manning brothers are just marketing machines, both of them, Peyton and Eli. They're a marketer's dream, and so we salute them. Finally, a brand up for turkey and gravy soda. Jones Soda revised gag-inducing turkey and gravy flavor after a decade off shelves. Jones Soda, known for oddball flavors like bug juice and blue bubble gum. They are now putting turkey and gravy just ahead of Thanksgiving. There you go, turkey and gravy soda. I'm not quite sure anybody wants that. And finally, I have one more. The Bronx Zoo Gorillas. I would ask any of my listeners to go online and put in Bronx Zoo Gorillas fooling around or whatever it is, or having oral sex. There's a viral video, and it basically shows one gorilla going down on another. I'm not quite sure if it's 2 males or a male and a female. I don't know about that. I don't know if these are gay gorillas or straight gorillas, but it's pretty graphic, and it was right in front of a bunch of kids sitting there. It's just silly and funny. So so a brand up to the Bronx Zoo Gorillas doing their thing. And those are our brands of the week. Now let's get to Stevie Van Zandt. You're going to love this interview. Stevie is one of the best guys around. Of course, he's been part of the Springsteen E Street Band for all these years. Starred as Tony Soprano's consigliere in The Sopranos. He's got a lot to talk about. Here's Stevie Van Zandt. Okay, I want to talk to you about Shopify today. As supercharge your knowledge, your sales, and your success, Shopify is more than a store. Connect with your customers, drive sales, manage your day-to-day. Look, Shopify is a platform designed for anyone to sell anywhere. It gives entrepreneurs like myself the resources once reserved for big businesses. It customizes your needs with a great-looking online store that brings the idea to life and the tools to manage your day-to-day and drive sales. This is the place, Shopify. If you got to sell anything, it's basically every 28 seconds, a small business owner makes their first sale on Shopify. Get started by building and customizing your online store with no coding or design experience. I'm telling you, you got to sell something, Shopify. Gain knowledge and confidence with extensive resources to help you succeed. 24/7 support. You're never alone. More than a store. Shopify grows with you. This is possibility powered by Shopify. Go to shopify.com/Donny all lowercase, for a free 14-day trial and get full access to Shopify's entire suite of features. Start selling on Shopify today. Go to Shopify, shopify.com/Donny right now. Shopify.com/Donny. Check it out. Okay, I want to talk about Chime, Chime. When your online checking account balance is running low, the last thing you need is a $33 overdraft fee. Overdraft fees have gotten way out of hand. In 2019, traditional banks took $11 billion in overdraft fees. Chime does things differently. Chime is an award-winning app and debit card that has saved its members more than $10 billion in overdraft fees with Spot Me free overdraft. Eligible members can overdraft up to $200 on debit card purchases and cash withdrawals with absolutely no fees. Now you deserve financial peace of mind. Join the millions of Americans already loving Chime. Sign up. It only takes 2 minutes. Doesn't affect your credit score. Get started today on chime.com/Donny. That's chime.com/Donny. Banking services provided by and debit card issued by the Bancorp Bank or Stride Bank NA, members FDIC. Spot Me eligibility requirements apply. Overdraft only applies to debit card purchases and cash withdrawals. Limits start at $20 and may be increased up to $200 by Chime. Chime member overdraft fee savings based on eligible members' use of Spot Me versus $33 average overdraft fee. Overdraft fee data based on Bankrate checking account survey and CRL June 2020 overdraft fees report. So Chime, no more overdraft. It's the debit card place to go. Chime. I am thrilled at today's guest on brand. Stevie Van Zandt. Let me give you a little setup for Stevie. It's going to take me a minute or two because he gives Renaissance man a new term. He is a musician, a performer, a songwriter, arranger, music producer, music supervisor, TV producer, actor, director, Broadway producer, TV and film composer, live event producer, international DJ, activist, historian, teacher, member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and recognized internationally as one of the world's foremost authorities on both contemporary and traditional rock. He's a member, of course, of the E Street Band with Bruce Springsteen. He was in the Sopranos. He's got his amazing Sean Sirius, Little Steven's Underground Garage. He's got 7 solo albums, his own band. We know him from the Sopranos. He's got a big new book out, Unrequited Infatuations, and I'm thrilled to welcome to the show Stevie Van Zandt. How you doing, man?
Good, Donnie. Good to see you.
Now, I don't know if you remember this because you didn't know me. I knew who you were, but back in the I'm going to say it's the early 80s, we both lived in the same building in Manhattan, the Sheffield on West 57th Street.
Oh, no kidding.
Do you remember that?
No.
Do you remember living in the building, or you were in that?
No, I remember living there.
Yeah, okay, you wouldn't know me then. You wouldn't know me then, but I recognized you at the time. And first of all, how you doing, man?
Oh, good, man, good. Yeah, we lived up there for quite a while because my wife was a ballet dancer, and she used to love going to the ballet, which was just a couple blocks away, you know.
Now, your life has been so interesting. I want to go back. We're going to do a little This Is Your Life, Stevie Van Zandt. And it's what the book is really all about. And I mean, you grew up in suburban New Jersey, Jersey kid, loved music. And I want to pick it up when you were kind of in the grunge bars there and a young guy. And take me to the early days in those early grunge bars playing.
Well, first of all, we were the luckiest generation, and going back and reliving those days reminded me how lucky we were. We were the first, the first real baby boom generation. So we had all kinds of places to play as a young band. High school dances and beach clubs and special teenage clubs built just for us. And I've never heard of that before our generation or after our generation. But we had a lot of attention, and everybody. If you didn't on your night on a day off or whatever, you were either playing in a band or you're going to see a band. That was it. That was your life. We had no cell phones or internet or
times were better, huh?
So rock and roll was really quite a common thing. Not just us we who were in bands, but everybody was kind of very much a monoculture in those days, and rock and roll was everything. So it's a wonderful time to grow up, and we were very lucky.
And you talk about the first time you met Bruce, and he was just kind of a shy guy playing guitar. You guys kind of hit it off. Talk to me about, I mean, you were in your teens. Talk to me about that first meeting.
Yeah, I talk about this in more detail, but basically there were no bands in America at the time. February 8th, 1964, there were no bands. I mean, if you went to a high school dance, there would be a band, but there would be an instrumental band. February 9th, 1964, a group called the Beatles played a variety show called Ed Sullivan, which the whole family used to watch and the entire country watched. And the next day, February 10th, everybody had a band in the garage. I mean, it was an amazing transformation because the Beatles introduced the idea of being in a band. It was a whole new kind of idea. We had, a lot of individuals in those days, in the 50s, Chuck Berry and Little Richard and those guys. And then we had doo-wop groups, harmony groups. But there weren't that many bands who sang and played, And so everybody had a band in the garage. Most of them mercifully stayed there. But about a dozen of us got out into like a circuit. And I had my band, The Source, and Bruce had his band, The Castiles. And there were probably 8 or 10 other bands that you'd run into. And so you were automatically friends just from being in a rock and roll band, which was a weird thing to do still in the 60s. It wasn't really a legitimate business yet until the 70s. So, it was kind of a freaky thing to do. So you were immediately friends. And like I used to say, if you were in a band, you were friends. If you had long hair, you were friends. And if you had long hair and were in a band, you were best friends.
Right.
And that was our story. We kind of hit it off. And he was the only other guy I ever met, at the time, and maybe to this day, who felt that the same way as I did about rock and roll, that rock and roll was everything. It wasn't just a hobby. It wasn't just something you did on the weekend or something like that just for fun. It was everything. It became my religion, and it was something very special.
To that point, I'm going to read a quote from Bruce and from you. Quote from him. He's not the only one, nor the oldest, nor the richest, but little Stevie Van Zandt might currently be the planet's most charismatic, dedicated, and visible crusader, scraping to preserve the dirty purity of rock and roll. And quote from you, I know it sounds a bit silly, but I do believe rock and roll can change the world. It's about bands, and that suggests to me brotherhood, family, friendship, and community. So kind of it is everything to you.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about Alto. And look, do you have an account with Coinbase, or are you thinking of opening one? Do you own any Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, or any cryptocurrency? Look, crypto is the future of money. And here's the thing, when you do anything in life, there's one way to do it, and there's also a smarter way to do it. You may already be investing in cryptocurrency, but you can trade Bitcoin, Ethereum, and over 80 other cryptocurrencies in a tax-advantaged IRA. With an Alto Crypto IRA, you can trade crypto like Bitcoin and avoid or defer taxes. I want to say this again. Alto IRA, okay? This is a really, 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 really smart thing. It's basically you trade crypto like Bitcoin and avoid or defer the taxes. You get into investing in crypto and do it in a tax-advantaged retirement account. It's the easy way to get crypto into an IRA. Trade all you want without the tax headache. Invest as little as $10, no setup charges, secure 24/7 trading. There's 80 coins available, including Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Cardano. So this is the place to go. Multiple ways to fund your account. Make a cash contribution, transfer cash from an existing IRA, or roll over to a 401k. Ready to take your investments to the next level? Diversify like the pros and trade without tax headaches. Open an Alto Crypto IRA with as little as $10. Just go to Alto, ALTOIRA.com brand. That's Alto, ALTOIRA.com brand. Start investing in crypto today and do it and save money on taxes. Go to AltoIRA.com/brand. I want to talk to you about Wondery. In the 90s, 2 new hip-hop record labels shocked parents and won over fans worldwide, selling tens of millions of albums. The Business Wars podcast from Wondery has a story of how Death Row and Bad Boy Records changed American music and American business. But soon enough, their East versus West Coast rivalry would turn deadly. The battle between the 2 labels escalated as they fought to reach the top of the charts. Tupac would score with a blockbuster album for Death Row, then Bad Boy would retaliate with a hit Notorious B.I.G. single. The larger-than-life characters like Tupac and Biggie and Dr. Dre and Snoop, Puff Daddy, all of them. You gotta really, really, really listen to these stories. Business Wars, Death Row versus Bad Boy has the story of how these rap rivals turn hip-hop into a multi-billion-dollar global industry. This is on Wondery. This is Business Wars. This is the Death Row versus Bad Boy series. In your own words, I'm telling you, this is just fantastic. You will not want to miss it. Listen to Business Wars, Death Row versus Bad Boy on Apple Podcasts. So this is part of Wondery. It's the Business Wars podcast from Wondery, and it's really fantastic. Death Row versus Bad Boy. Listen to Business Wars, Death Row versus Bad Boy on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music. You can listen 1 week early and ad-free by joining Wondery Plus in the Wondery app. That's WNDERY. And talking about Southside Johnny, I did not know that you were one of the founders of Southside Johnny and the Asbury Jukes. I did not know that. I mean, because you're so obviously associated and part of the E Street Band, and that. Talk to me about those beginnings, and where was the overlap with E Street?
Well, so we're in bands in high school, and then after high school, Bruce came to me one day and said he discovered this new club in Asbury Park. Asbury Park was, a ways away. It was like 20, 30 minutes south of Middletown where I was. And, it was a little bit exotic. The only time I'd been there was for a band battle. And so he said, come down and check out this club called Upstage. It's open from 8 p.m. to 5 in the morning, and with no booze. So it was strictly for musicians. And in those days, the bars closed at 3. So everybody would come over after the bars closed and jam. Jamming was the big thing in those days. So we ended up hanging out in Upstage and eventually moving to Asbury Park. We had an apartment together for a while, and then we met this whole new cast of characters from Vinny Mad Dog Lopez to Danny Federici to Big Bad Bobby Williams and Southside Johnny and Gary Talent. It was a whole new set of friends. And we would have a band, a different band, like every 3 months, every 4 months. Right. I'd be the leader for a couple of months, and then Bruce would be the leader, and then, Southside Johnny. Anyway, long story short, we ended up, I ended up going on to what was called the Oldie Circuit for a while, where I got a chance to meet all my heroes and finish my education in terms of the rock and roll education, because I had missed the 50s basically. So I got a chance to spend time with, Little Richard and Gary U.S. Bonds and the Drifters and Benny King and all of those really original heroes and pioneers. And then after that, I came back and we started Southside Johnny and the Asbury Jukes. We had
what year was that?
This is going to be the Oldie thing was about 73, so this is like 74,
right?
74 into 75,
right?
Me, Southside, and Bruce went to see Sam and Dave at a local club,
right?
And they were just so phenomenal that we decided we're going to be the white Sam and Dave, So we kind of based the Asbury Jukes on that. And I was already a rock guitar player, and we brought in horns, so we had this odd mixture of rock and soul, which we combined, which became our identity. And I went back to it these previous 3 years, right before the quarantine. I went back to that sound and toured for 3 years with a 5-piece horn section again, for the first time in 30 years. But back then it was important to have your own identity in those days, Donnie. You had to, speaking of brands, you had to have your own brand. And the 60s was I call it a Renaissance period, and that's not hyperbole. I really feel that was a Renaissance period when the greatest art being made is also the most commercial. You're in a Renaissance period.
Yeah.
And so all through the 60s, everybody had a very, very distinct identity, and then that would start to change in the 70s. We went from a monoculture to a very fragmented culture, and suddenly it was everything from singer-songwriters like James Taylor and Jackson Brown over here to heavy metal like Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin over there, and everything in between. So the hybrids began in the 70s, but still, you even had to have an identity as a hybrid. You know, you were never going to be as original as the '60s groups were.
Yeah.
But you still had to have your own identity. So we found ours combining rock and soul together. And
then when did you join up? When did you join up with Bruce?
So right around that same time, we did a year or two in the bars there, and then Bruce, Bruce started hanging out with us because his first 2 records didn't do very well.
Right. A lot of people don't know that. Yeah, a lot of people don't know that. They think it was started with Born to Run, and they don't understand that. No.
No, he had 2 records before that, and they sold nothing. So suddenly he's in the business, which we'd always dreamed about, but we were having more fun being out of the business.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So he kind of he's hanging out with us where the action was. And we created a real residency scene in Asbury. We started with 1 night at the Stone Pony, went to 2, went to 3 nights a week. And I mean lines around the block. And so at that point, Bruce is putting out his 3rd album, and his kind of career there is kind of on the line for a minute. He says, I'm going to try fronting for a while and see if that changes the dynamics a little bit, I want to put the guitar down. So come play. I got 7 gigs booked. Come be the guitar player. I'm going to front, and we'll see what happens, And at that point, I was ready to get out of town. I was also managing the band, and you're constantly fighting with the bar owners, and it's constant warfare. So I was ready for a break. So I went and joined. I joined the E Street Band for 7 gigs basically, and then stayed 7 years because at that point we broke through.
What did that? Do you remember a moment when it was like? Because you guys have been a big part of culture for my generation, and I. Do you remember the moment where you said we're really making a difference here? We're kind of not in Kansas anymore, and this is something special. Was there a internal moment, an external moment, where you went, holy fucking shit, this is really happening?
It happened slowly. I mean, we probably had the longest gestation of musicians who, between the time of starting to play and actually being successful, was like 15 years. Okay,
Yeah.
that's a long time.
Yeah,
because we had made a little noise of Born to Run. People think that was a hit, but it really wasn't.
right.
But of course, it became his signature song, deservedly so. Just a terrific record. But then there was a whole lawsuit going on. We couldn't really tour that much, and did the Darkness on the Edge of Town period. Was kind of a rough period, and we were needing some help, and we finally hooked up with the greatest agent that ever lived, Frank Barcelona, who really came in at the right time and helped us out, and got us through that rough period in the late '70s. And then
what would an agent explain to people what an agent would do for a band at that moment? You're having a rough period. Now all of a sudden, new agent comes on. The band's not changing. So what's changing?
Right. Well, Frank Barcelona is worth a couple of minutes of time here. He completely transformed the entire rock industry single-handedly. And I'll tell you why in just a few sentences. In the beginning, rock and roll was not considered a serious part of the agency business. It was movies and TV and the real the pop singers like the Frank Sinatras and Tony Bennett. Frank Barcelona started the first rock and roll agency that was exclusively for rock and roll, and he put promoters, young promoters, gave them territories. He divided the country up, just like Maranzano had done with the Mob, and then Luciano later. Put his own promoters in place, and said to them, "Listen, you're going to lose money for the first couple of tours. You're going to break even, and then you're going to make money the rest of your life, and no one's going to come and take the band away, and you're going to have consistency." And so Frank Barcelona introduced the concept of longevity, which didn't exist in the rock world. He also came up with the innovation of deciding that what a band is live is the most important thing. The records would follow, the radio would follow.
Yeah.
He was very, very innovative and became the most powerful guy in the business. And what that meant was, at a time when Bruce was having a tough time, Frank getting involved gave him a whole new life. Now people had to take Bruce seriously because Frank, I called him the Godfather with good reason. Frank was now interested. He was under Frank's wing. So we got through that darkest period because of Frank, and also Steve Popovich, another record company guy, helped us out at the time by organizing a session for Ronnie Spector that we did, where we got paid for the first time, and we needed that money. Anyway, finally, for the fifth album, The River, was the first one I co-produced, I'm proud to say, we finally had a hit single. And that's the point where everything changed.
Yeah.
That first hit single, and singles were tricky in those days because we're coming out of the era when FM was replacing AM radio.
Yeah.
And AM radio was known as the pop stations, where you had hit singles, and FM was more for rock songs, which were longer and not really pop oriented.
Yeah.
So you had to be careful. You couldn't have a hit single at the wrong time, or else they looked like you were selling out.
Yeah.
So we had after 5 albums, it was the right time, so we finally broke through.
You guys always look, I've seen so many shows, you guys always look like you're having such a good time out there. Yeah, I'm friendly with John Bon Jovi, and I've asked him this many times. You're doing, obviously the shows are a little different every night, the sets are a little different, but how are you playing a rock star up there? Are you thinking about the dry cleaning you have to pick up? Because it's a job. I mean, I know you're an artist, but it's repetitive, and you're doing it, night after night after night. Are you, for when you're in the audience, it's this special thing? Do you get lost the same way, or take me through Stevie up on stage? What's going on in you? I always want to get. You guys are playing in front of 20,000 or 50,000 people, and you're a handful of people. What's going on in your mind when you're up there?
A couple of things. First of all, the minute you walk on stage, it's just like when you were 16 or 26 or 36. I mean, it's always new again. I have a theory that I think our brains have a limiter on them that don't really remember our highest, our most ecstatic moments or our most depressed moments. I think we actually have a limiter that limits our ability to actually remember those highs and lows, to keep us kind of stable. And so every time you walk on stage and you hear that roar, it's new again, and your adrenaline immediately, goes to work, and you're 16 or you're 26 or whatever again. So you go on stage fully intending to do the best show anyone's ever seen, okay? And that's never changed. At the same time, I kind of got the front row seat of one of the great shows on earth. So I'm enjoying the show as much as anybody, really. So half your mind is sort of enjoying the show, and half of your mind is kind of giving a show. But it's all very natural. I mean, when you've been on stage as long as we have, I feel more comfortable on stage than off.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. That's really your comfort zone, and so you're. Are you acting? We're all acting all the time. I think. Whatever.
We're all playing
all
parts.
have a million personalities, and we are whoever's most appropriate at that moment. I think is who we become.
You talk a lot about the book about probably one of the biggest decisions in your life, and there was a tremendous upside, tremendous downside when you decide to leave the band. And you felt that your influence wasn't the same as you wanted it to be. You had always been Bruce's consigliere and always been a big part of the decision making and how things went, and you felt that was shifting a little bit. Talk to me now in hindsight, leaving the band in those years you were gone.
Yeah, that was the big moment of my life. And, you know, you look back, and of course, your obvious thought is, I wish I could have done both things. I wish I could have stayed in the band and then done everything I've done since I left the band, you know,
Yeah.
because everything I have done, I've done since I left. And that includes my solo work, you know, the Sopranos, Lilyhammer, you know, my involvement in politics and South Africa, and all the rest.
We're going to talk about Sunsetting in a little while. It's incredible.
You know, I mean, it's one of those things that, you know, of course, it probably wouldn't have been the case. You know, if I'd stayed,
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't have done any of those things, very, very possibly. So it's always going to be that, you know, mixed feelings about, you know, I gave up, you know, what I'd worked my whole life for at that point, you know, 15 years of work. I just walked away from it when we finally made it, which, you know, seems foolish, and everybody tried to talk me out of it. And of course they were right, you know.
Yes and no, because to your point, you would not have done these. It's interesting. Similar thing for me. We'll talk a little bit because we had an interaction, and I was running my ad agency. And we were super successful and everything like that. And I sold at a very young age. And you say in your book, you know, never leave your power base. You know, I kind of left my power base, and I've had a media career since, but I often question, okay, had I not sold and that was my power base, that was kind of who I was, what would my life look like now? And so it's an interesting, I feel you, whereas it wasn't a mistake, but it was a mistake, but it wasn't a mistake. And, you know, and it's just so, but I think as somebody who's just got a front row seat to your life, I think it was not a mistake for you because, as you said, Lilyhammer would not have happened, which, by the way, great show, 3 seasons. I mean, like not everybody knows it, but please look it up on Apple. It is such a fantastic show. Was it 3 seasons, 4 seasons?
3 seasons. Yeah, it was Norway, actually.
I'm sorry, Norway.
No, that's all right. And it was the first show on Netflix, so it's still on Netflix.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
We gotta talk about the Sopranos. I mean, I was as much of a Sopranos devout person as you can be. I discovered it very early before it became what it was, you know, because early on, it wasn't like, you know, we're hit out of the box. And I mean, and it was so the first of its kind of, you know, it is now what we see on TV and all the serialized shows, these incredibly well-written, well-acted movies on television, serialized that we never saw before. And that, you know, tell the story about how you ended up is so, you know, because, you know, nobody would tap you on the shoulder. I mean, except somebody like David Chase and go, you know what? I think this guy should be in my TV show.
Yeah, no, it's a ridiculous story that, you know, you wouldn't believe if it didn't happen to you. And, you know, I talk about how destiny works in the book. I take it, you know, one ridiculous, you know, thing at a time, you know, one incident at a time. And basically, David Chase was flicking around with the remote, and I'm inducting the Rascals in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and he stopped on that channel. I did a little bit of a comedy thing, which is probably on YouTube somewhere. And he was just like, hey, let's, you know, he was already a fan. He you know, he's not only an E Street fan, he actually had my solo albums too. And he said, you know, I want new faces. This is my last thing I'm going to do on TV. He had been in TV since Rockford Files, you know.
For a younger audience, that's an old James Gardner series, right? From the 70s.
Right. From the 70s. And he'd done, you know, 3 or 4 other shows, you know, that were successful. And he was, you know, a successful TV journeyman writer. And he's like, I'm done with this. You know, I want to go make movies. So I'm going to do one more TV show, and I'm breaking all the rules. You know, so I want new faces. And they found me, you know, which I was not easy to find at the time. And, you know, he says, you know, you want to be in my new TV show? And I was like, geez, that's a nice compliment, you know. But no, thanks, you know. And he's like, what do you mean, no? And I was like, well, I'm not an actor, you know. And he says, yes, you are an actor. You just don't know it yet.
So what did I'm so fascinated by that. What it came to be prophetic, because you were and are a fantastic actor. How did he know that? Is it just because you're a performer
Well,
in general, or
no, no, I think it was the relationship that we communicated from the E Street Band. We really were the Rat Pack of rock and roll.
yeah,
We weren't faceless, nameless sidemen. You know what I mean? We were always characters, and Bruce always talked about us in his raps. And so it was really that kind of personality and character that we communicated on stage, with me in the Dean Martin role and Clarence, Sammy Davis on steroids,
right, right,
uh, you know, uh, and so, I think he was attracted to that kind of personality, and we even communicated that in our pictures, some of the pictures we took, I kind of had a little bit of that mob thing, the Italian American thing,
yeah,
early on, I used to wear the t-shirts and the hats and just kind of had that, was bringing that Italian American attitude into rock and roll, which hadn't been really obvious probably since Dion.
yeah.
Um, you know, so I think he saw that. He saw some personality there, and he thought, and I also thought that the New Jersey connection was very important to him.
Yeah.
Every network passed on the show because he was insisting on shooting in New Jersey.
And you actually
So,
read for the Tony character at first. Didn't get it, and he actually created the Silvio character to have you in there.
Yeah. I said to him, when HBO said, "What are you, crazy?
Right.
You can't cast this guy who never acted before," and so at that point, he says, "What do you want to do? You can have any part you want." And I said, "Well, now that I think about it, because I mean, things have been so quick, so spontaneous." I said, "Now that I think about it, I kind of feel guilty taking an actor's job. I mean, these guys, they work their whole lives. My wife's really an actor. I've seen her go to classes for years,
Right.
and off Broadway and off Broadway. I kind of feel guilty about this." And he said, "All right, I tell you what, then I'm going to write you in a part that doesn't exist, so you're not taking anybody's job." I said, "Wow, he really wants me in the show. This is wonderful." So I said, "Well, I get this treatment I had written about an independent hitman called Silvio Dante, and he opens a club like the old Copacabana club, but it's in modern day, but he lives in the past, and he has the big bands and the Jewish Catskills comics and dancing girls and the whole 50s kind of show." And the five families have tables at the club, and the police commissioner, and so it's kind of like a mob version of a Casablanca. And he says, that's interesting. Let me think about it. And he went to HBO, came back 2 days later, and said, "Nah, it's too expensive. So I'll tell you what, we're gonna make it a strip club, and you'll run it for the family, and then we'll use the back room as our office." So that became the Bada Bing.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
You, what's interesting is so fascinating is how you had a similar role in that consigliere to Jimmy Gandolfini, to Tony Soprano, as you did with Bruce and E Street Band. That I don't know if that was just coincidence or David understood that, or you guys built the character, but you as this consigliere to these larger than life characters, both Bruce and Tony.
Yeah. It ended up being very helpful to me as an actor because I knew exactly what those dynamics were, being the only guy who's going to bring him the bad news, because you're the only guy who is not afraid of him.
Yeah.
And it didn't start off that way. Obviously, I started off, first of all, he was going to cast me as Tony Soprano. Then I became the club owner, and I'd written a biography about the guy, how he had grown up with Tony, and they were best friends, and my guy was really the only guy who did not want to be the boss, and kind of like and so slowly by I don't know, halfway through the first season or so, it became obvious that actually was a role that was important. That role really wasn't really written into the pilot, that all important consigliere role because everybody else was vying for position or just, being a fuck up or whatever,
Yeah.
So, it ended up actually becoming an important little piece of the jigsaw puzzle.
While you were shooting early on, because you were a novice, so you maybe didn't have an appreciation that an Edie Falco or a Jimmy or Tony, some of the other guys who had been lifelong actors, and how special this was. Do you remember? Remember them people saying to you, "Dude, it's not like this. This is," or your own kind of epiphany? I mean, how did that go down?
No. They were impressive to me immediately. It was the greatest acting school you could ever go to. I mean, I remember the moment it became real to me was at the very first read through. You do a table read,
sure,
and I'm getting the hang of it, and I look up, and across the table from me is Johnny Ola, from Godfather 2.
Dominic, right?
Dominic Chianese. I'm like, holy shit, Johnny Ola, and suddenly the whole thing became very real at that moment, and but just watching Jimmy and Edie, I mean, these are two of the greatest actors ever, and like I said many times, you do a scene with Jimmy Gandolfini, you walk away a better actor,
What's your favorite scene? What's your favorite scene of all time?
I don't know. I really, cause some of the scenes with him, I think the one where he got mad at me for being honest with him,
Mm-hmm.
I like that because that felt familiar. I also like, I only had one arc with my wife because she was always with the girls and I was with the guys.
Who was your real life? Who was your real life wife? Of course, right?
Yeah, Maureen. After starting in the second season, became Gabriella, my character's wife, and there's a nice scene with her. When Jimmy's in the hospital, and I now have to, Silvio has to step up and be the boss for a minute. Right. It's a very I like that scene a lot with Maureen.
You talking about when you're leaving the house in the morning to go to work, and she's kind of like telling you, you can do it. And I don't remember the exact words, but it was kind of a woman standing behind her man. And you, as she's talking, you kind of starting to feel it, and it was a great scene. Great scene.
Yeah. It was, she was trying to give him some confidence, and it was a great, the writing was just so good, Donnie. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Doesn't get any
ridiculous.
Better. Now,
ridiculous.
You are interesting that you're about the only character in there that you didn't die. You were on life support, but we don't know what happened to you. Still,
no, he was going to stay alive just in case there was a sequel. Don't worry.
Now, do you have an interpretation of the ending? I mean, to some people, Tony got whacked at that moment. To other people, it was just nope, ending, and you're gonna do whatever you want. What was your creative take on that?
No, I didn't. Vanity Fair, I think it was, did an article years after the show went off, and interviewing all the actors and everything, which was a great article. And I ended the article. I think, I said, listen, he asked me the same question. How does it really end? Tell us the truth. I said, okay, for once and for all, I'm gonna end this conversation and tell you the truth. Okay, you ready? He says, yeah, I'm ready. Okay, what happened? He says, what happened? I said, I'll tell you what happened. The director yelled cut and the actors went home. I happen to do, my radio show is, on a lot of affiliates in addition to having my 2 channels on Sirius. And
you're on over 200 stations. I mean, it's going almost 20 years now. That's crazy. I mean, it's nuts.
Yeah, 100 countries.
Yeah.
But the morning after, I was on one of those morning shows that are syndicated all over the country.
Sure.
So I had to hear from the entire country, all the complaints about the ending. And finally I said, okay, let me hear your ending. Did you want Tony to die? Well, no. Did you want Edie to die? Well, no.
No.
Kids? No.
Yeah. So what were we going to do?
By the end of the radio show, people were like, oh, maybe the ending's not so bad after all, you know.
Just
Maybe, you know, maybe-
I just want to shift to politics. You're a very political guy, and something you've got to be so proud of in your life. Talk to us about Sun City.
Yeah, that'll be the one great accomplishment of my life, I'm sure. You know, again, good timing. You know, it was. We couldn't do it now. I'll tell you that. But we. It wasn't. You know, the whole South Africa apartheid thing wasn't that big an issue in America. You know, a couple of people would talk about it now and then. You know, Harry Belafonte, or you know, even Stevie Wonder, Randall Robinson. You know, but there wasn't much of a movement here. Overseas, it was different. You know, in England and Europe,
Sure,
they were very into it. So I know I'm just doing research. You know, I'm making political records. So I decided that was going to be my identity. Again, you know, that was going to be my brand, if you will, because again, I grew up in that Renaissance period when you had to have some distinct identity.
Right.
So I decided I'm going to be the political guy. You know, and all 5 of my albums in the '80s were very political. And so I'm doing research, and I couldn't find out much about South Africa. So I went down there twice in '84, I guess it was, and you know, and did a lot of interviews, and was shocked by what I saw. So I decided to come back. I said, you know, this is not going to just be another song on my next album. I got to get a little more attention for this situation. So I decided to have a couple more people on the record, and it turned into 50 artists, and you know, I strategized, okay, you know, here we are. The sports boycott was in effect and very effective, thanks to Arthur Ashe and others. The home run was going to be the economic boycott, where the banks cut them off, and then game over, we win. In between, you know, was the cultural boycott. So we were the bridge in between, you know, to solidify, you know, basically to raise the consciousness of everybody about what was going on down there. So, you know, we did this record, Sun City, and luckily I was able to talk MTV at the time and BET, but more MTV at the time to play it, because they were having trouble. They weren't playing many black artists, and they were really having a lot of trouble in that area. So I said, well, I got more black artists in this video. You know, you're going to make everybody very happy. Believe me. And I said, for once, you know, why don't you be on the forefront of this issue rather than catching up later, you know, because our radio stations wouldn't play it.
Yeah.
Ironically,
Amazing.
you know, we had our own apartheid here, which now we're seeing.
Yes,
you know,
we're certainly seeing that fall apart finally. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So if anybody who heard the song, they heard it on MTV, and we luckily had a great video.
And you guys were a big part of change. You really, really were.
We raised enough consciousness to override Reagan's. The only time Reagan's veto was overridden.
It's amazing.
And you know, it was an amazing moment. And it was Republicans that made the difference.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that? You know,
no,
real Republicans.
No, I can't. It was a little bit of a different time. One or two things I also want to get into is just I was very flattered that I showed up in your book. We had a kind of a brief interaction a bunch of years ago. Just tell me through that story, because I remembered it and I read it. And I was like, holy shit, that's right. I forgot about that.
It was a funny moment in time when the record business was suddenly coming to an end. I don't know, 2008-ish, maybe. I'm not great with time, but the record business was really in trouble and about to end, and it never has come back. So record companies and publishers and everybody were looking to license songs to TV commercials and movies, because that's the only revenue.
Yeah.
Suddenly, no more sales.
Yeah.
And the sales have really never come back, except for, you know, a dozen artists, you know, the Beyoncés of the world, you know. And so one of my guys comes in and says, you know, we're about to make a deal for a TV commercial, and the ad agency says they want to own the publishing. And I'm like, oh my God, there it goes. There goes the end of this whole, what's left of the revenue stream is about to end if this catches on, you know? Because yes, the ad agencies were in complete control.
They knew they had a last revenue stream, yeah.
Yeah. So whatever they say, you're gonna do. So I said, well, what's the agency? And they said, it's this Deutsch agency. I said, well, see if you can get the boss on the phone or a number, And they called you, and I guess I got the number and I called, and you got right on the phone, which was wonderful. And I said, Donny, I know we don't know each other, but there's a very serious thing going down. Can we get together? And you were like, yeah, that'd be great. Let me check my schedule. I said, no, right now. You were like, right now? I said, yeah, right now. Let me buy you a drink right now. And then you said, okay, let's do it. And we met at the Four Seasons restaurant there. And I told you the story, and you were like, I'll take care of it. And you did. And you changed the course of history by telling the ad agency when we don't need to own the publisher.
Yeah, I mean, I was proud to do that. I mean, I've always been a champion of the artist at heart, and although I was a businessman, and so you were very kind to me in the book. Thank you very much. Last two questions. First of all, I always ask my guests, what is the Stevie Van Zandt brand? What is your brand if you were going to sum it up?
My brand, whoa, that's a tough one. If you're gonna do something, do it right. Try. All we can do is try and realize our potential, and whatever you're doing that day. I mean, I tell people when I do these master classes on songwriting or whatever, I say, the thing to do is write with purpose.
Yeah.
And in fact, live with purpose. And I say that because I hate wasting time. And that's the one thing I really hate more than anything. I always feel like I'm behind already because I started so late in life. I didn't even, realize I was an artist until in my 30s. I didn't start acting until I was in my 40s. So I was very late to the game. So I'm always feeling like I'm catching up, and I hate the concept of wasting time. So I'm like, make sure, live with purpose, write with purpose, make it count. Make it count.
Quick, I'm going to throw out a few names. Just give me one or two words that you think their brand is about, okay? Clarence Clemens.
Tradition.
Little Richard.
The archetype of rock and roll.
James Gandolfini.
One of the great character actors of all time who had to get used to being a leading man.
Donald Trump.
I would say Satan, but I hate to insult.
I knew that was coming out of you. I knew that was coming out of you. And I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you,
I hate
pal.
to insult the satanic people.
I'm right there with you.
Forget it. We could do about an hour just on the epithets I could come up with. But Donnie, if you would have told me one guy could cause this much damage, I would not have believed.
Well, when you look throughout history, and it is one guy. And I've been on TV a lot, and I took a lot of bunk, because I was comparing him to Hitler. Not that he was causing a Holocaust, but when you look at the playbook of basically creating another, dividing, discrediting the free press, putting getting the justice system, every dictator playbook this guy did, and how people didn't see that. So you and I are not far off. Joe Biden.
I think his ex-wife said he had Hitler's speeches.
Yeah, Mein Kampf. They're in the book next to him. Joe Biden.
Anyway, boy, I got I hate to be negative about him because he's such a good soul, but very similar to Obama's situation. I'm sorry, but it's the right guy at the wrong time, and he's just he's such a lovable guy,
decent guy.
You want to root for him, but man, it's one mistake after the other right now.
Yeah, he's in a rough patch right now. We'll see. I mean, the presidency it goes on for 4 years, so we'll see how that plays out. All right, final one, Bruce Springsteen.
Work ethic, I mean, he's the living embodiment of greatness, because greatness isn't born.
Yeah,
greatness is earned. Greatness is developed, And he's just the greatest example of that, and I watched it happen. I watched it happen from a front row seat.
Speaking of greatness, thank you, my friend. I really appreciate it. The book is Unrequited Infatuations. One of the really decent, brilliant artists of our time. I really appreciate you sharing your time with me, my friend.
My pleasure, Donny. Good to see you.
Have a great day. Hope you enjoyed this week's Brands of the Week and Brand of the Week, Stevie Van Zandt. Remember to rate, subscribe, and review anywhere you get podcasts, Spotify, Apple, any place else. And also go on YouTube. You can see the video and subscribe there also. And please leave your comments. We love to hear the brands that you want to hear about. So stay safe. Remember, rate, subscribe, and review anywhere you get podcasts. We'll see you next time on Brand. Everybody, thanks for watching. If you like it, hit that subscribe button. And we love having you here watching On Brand. And just don't miss any future episodes. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We'll see you next time.